I now give the floor to His Excellency Péter Szijjártó, Minister for Foreign Affairs and Trade of Hungary.
Chairman, Excellencies, dear colleagues, good evening to all of you. First of all, let me start with congratulating my friend and colleague Abdallah Shahid to take over the presidency of the General Assembly. I wish him good luck. He is going to lead the organization through tough times, but I would like to assure him about Hungary's support, our support to the office of the President of the General Assembly. Dear colleagues, it's great to meet again personally. It's great that the General Assembly takes place not in a virtual format. This is the essence of diplomacy. We meet each other, we talk to each other, and we do our best in order to overcome our challenges. And these last 1.5 years were full of challenges, troubles, a lot of problems. Now the situation has improved a bit, but we do have to be aware that the crisis has not been yet over. The pandemic has created a very uncertain situation. And I have to commend the fantastic achievement of the research community of the globe, which was able to find the answer within 1.5 years. And the answer to this global challenge is vaccination. Or to put it more directly, vaccination is the only and exclusive answer, because only vaccination can protect us. We have to express our appreciation, gratitude, and respect to all those doctors, researchers, and volunteers who have taken part in those projects at the end of which vaccine has been created. The pandemic is an attack on the entire globe, an attack on all nations and all citizens. And since the attack is global, defense has to be global as well. This means that we have to enable ourselves to be able to give vaccine to everybody. And this is a matter of capacity. In order to be able to complete a successful protection action, we have to make sure that vaccine is going to be produced in the most possible locations of the world. And the most possible vaccine must be produced. Vaccine is a tool to save lives of people. It's not an ideological and not a political question, because saving lives of the people must not be neither ideological nor political issue. That's why we urge the regulators, the international, regional, and national authorities to carry out a purely professional, fact-based procedures when they authorize different types of vaccines. And we urge them to leave political aspects totally and absolutely out of consideration. Mr. Chair, dear colleagues, it has also become obvious that the pandemic does not only constitute a healthcare-related crisis, but an economic one as well. The pandemic does unfortunately have serious economic consequences. During the last 1.5 years, 114 people have lost their jobs. The global flow of direct investments has been decreased by 42%. And there was a 5.3% backsliding when it comes to the volume of global trade. All these phenomena ended up in a new order of global economy. Now the most important duty of ours is to save jobs, as many as it is just possible, to replace at least the lost jobs, and to create new ones in the meantime. We have to ensure that people make a living from work and not from social aid. Social aid puts people in a defenseless position. It makes people vulnerable, and it brings states into indebtedness. To the contrary, work brings dignity and predictable future. People who work create value and create economic performance. And here, after 1.5 years of pandemic, we have to especially think about the families. Families who raise children. Because these families have borne a double burden. The parents had to go to work in order to keep their country running, and they had to look after their kids, whose schools and kindergartens were closed. So in Hungary, we made a decision that in case the growth of our national economy reaches 5.5% at the end of the year, we will pay back the personal income tax to those families who raise children, which they paid in the entire year of 2021. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to draw your attention to another consequence of COVID as well. A big part of our life has been pushed to the digital space. Parents who couldn't go to work, they have to work from home. Children took part in digital education. And these two have created a vulnerable and unexperienced group of users of digital space. And this kind of group is a perfect target for cybercrime. That's why we urge to put together a strict international regulation which can protect our children and our families from spreading extremist ideologies on the internet, of sexual propaganda, and of cyberbullying. We do have to be aware that if we are not able to tackle the challenges coming from COVID, then we will have to be faced with even more serious challenges in the future. If we are not able to ensure vaccination for everybody on the spot, if we are not able to tackle the economic challenges, then there will be further massive migratory waves launched. The pandemic and migration together construct a kind of vicious circle. The more serious the healthcare-related and economic-related impacts of the COVID are, the more people will hit the road and the more people will migrate. And the more people are involved in the migratory flows, the more accelerated virus will spread. So nowadays, migration does not only constitute the already well-known cultural, civilizational, or security-related risks, but very serious healthcare risks as well. And this is one of the many reasons why we have to speak about Afghanistan here again. Unfortunately, we do have to admit that there was a big failure of the international community after 20 years in Afghanistan. Once, and when I say once, I mean once later, we do have to analyze what kind of mistakes were committed and what kind of bad decisions were made in this regard. But now the main duty is to mitigate the damage. We have to prevent Afghanistan becoming a safe place for terrorist organizations again. We have to prevent additional migratory flows stemming from Afghanistan, because such kind of migratory flows will mean a direct security threat on both the neighborhood of Afghanistan and on the entire European continent. We have to strengthen the global fight against terror. And here, United Nations should play an important role. But United Nations will not be able to play an important role as long as the finances of the United Nations Office for Counterterrorism are not part of the regular budget. Dear colleagues, in Europe, everybody remembers what happened in 2015. After the irresponsible statements of some political leaders, millions of migrants hit the road towards Europe. And the impacts and the consequences are clear. Many terrorists have taken advantage of the chance to hide among migrants. Parallel societies have been created in some European countries. The programs for social integration have failed. Some parts of big European capitals became no-go zones, and wars were launched among gangs. A loud minority started to oppress the silent majority. And no wonder that the European leaders now say that they do not want to commit the same mistakes which were committed back in 2015. However, they make the same kind of decisions and the same kind of statements. When Afghans are being encouraged by them to leave their homeland, this leaves the position of the neighboring countries, who know the situation there the best, totally out of consideration. What do these neighboring countries say? They say that the challenges in Afghanistan must be solved in Afghanistan. And this approach of the neighboring countries should definitely be followed. Dear colleagues, Hungary has already fulfilled its moral duty. We have evacuated everybody, all Afghans who have helped and assisted our troops during their stay in Afghanistan in the framework of the international mission. Around 400 Afghans, including the family members, are now in Hungary, and we definitely will take care of them. But here there's a full stop at the end of the sentence. We will not receive anyone else. We will protect our border, we will withstand the pressure, and we will continue to stick to our own right to make our own decision whom we allow to enter the territory of our country and with whom we are ready to live together. Back in 2015, we have rejected the obligatory quota of the distribution of the migrants to be introduced. And we will do the same now. We will reject any kind of quota system of distribution in any framework. After 2015, everybody has to understand that migratory flows constitute significant risks, and on many occasions they are dangerous. I remember 2018 when we debated about the global compact of migration here. There were 5 countries, including my country, voting against. At that time, global compact of migration described the migration as if it only had positive aspects and as if it only brought benefits. Now, 3 years after, I think everybody admits that this approach has totally failed. And instead of encouraging people to leave their homes, instead of encouraging people to hit the road, instead of encouraging people to take advantage of help of smugglers, whose activities can sometimes be only hardly differentiated from the activities of so-called NGOs. And instead of encouraging people to put their life at risk, we do have to bring help where it is needed. And we have to create circumstances which make it possible for everybody to stay where he or she has been living before. This approach is being reflected in a development program of the Hungarian government called Hungary Helps. With this program, we help Christian communities who suffer from persecution. With the help of $70 million of programs, we have ensured for 250,000 Christians in the Middle East, in Africa and Asia, either to return their homes or to stay there. If we had brought them to Europe, we would have contributed to the fulfillment of the goals of the terrorist organizations, and goal of which is to eliminate these Christian communities. We have rebuilt their churches, their houses, we covered operational costs of their hospitals, we have rebuilt their schools and helped them to stay where their communities had been living for centuries. Finally, dear Chair and dear colleagues, COVID has brought a lot of hardships and suffering in the last 1.5 years, but it definitely did bring one opportunity. It has shown how interdependent we are. A successful protective measure of one country helps the other one to be protected as well. So COVID brought a hope of a better cooperation among nations of the world. A world which is unfortunately nowadays full of tensions. We have to do our best to overcome these tensions. But we will not be able to do so without a more pragmatic, more effective, and more respect-based cooperation between East and West. And based on historic experience, we Central Europeans are pretty much aware of the significance of that. Dear colleagues, the Chair, thank you very much for your kind attention.
I thank the Minister for Foreign Affairs and Trade of Hungary for his statement.